What is front of the house? I'm not talking about where your front door is. We're talking about front of the house in hospitality and tourism. That's any area that the guests will usually see first, is where the guests will enter. So in a restaurant setting, that entrance and their dining room is what the guests usually see first. So you usually have a greeter or a host or hostess waiting by the door in the area that guests go in. That's part of hospitality and tourism. The front of the house in a restaurant employs several different positions. For instance, you have servers and cashiers, hosts, hostesses, and parking attendants. The front of the house is responsible for seating the guests. That's what your host and hostess do. It's selling the food. So you have to, whoever the waiter or waitress or your servers are, they need to upsell. A lot of times when you walk in, there also is maybe like today's special listed. Maybe they have examples of what the plates would look like, the food, just to entice you to buy certain things. That's selling the food, transmitting orders to the kitchen, and then servicing the customer however needed, serving the customer, and then bussing tables, and of course obtaining payment from the customers. Now, sometimes in the restaurant industry, depending on how big it is and the way they do their business, maybe your waiter, waitress, or your server, maybe they do three different things. Maybe not only do they sell you on foods to buy or items to purchase, then they take your order, send it to the back, and serve your food, along with sometimes they go ahead and take your payment. So some places do they have multiple, one person may have multiple jobs. Other places they have specific job titles and they each just do that one thing. Leadership skills are important in many industries, in most industries actually, but they are important in the restaurant business as well. On the next slide, we'll talk about all the different types of leadership skills that you need. And maybe if you don't have, you can work on. If you do have them, maybe you can sharpen your skills. Leadership skills. Let's talk about some of those. So direction. Good leaders demonstrate direction. They communicate clearly and make sure others know what is expected of them. If someone says, hey, just go do this, but they never really tell you what to do and you've never done it before, what's your expectation? That you have no idea what their expectation would be. Lead dependably. So good leaders lead dependably. Leaders treat everyone fairly and are accountable for their actions. You can't play favorites. You don't just pick your best friend over the other person, especially if the other person deserves whatever it is you're doing. You have to be fair. Good leaders encourage others. Leaders influence through example and earn employees' respect. Good leaders inspire others. They motivate employees. They praise their work and guide them to work as a team. They coach. Good leaders guide their employees as they perform their tasks and praise their successes. That doesn't mean to be fake and be like, oh my goodness, you're so great. That's not what that means. It means to go ahead and compliment and acknowledge when they've done something well, when they've done something right, or maybe even if they've just improved. Maybe they were really bad at folding the napkins for the table and now they're getting better. Acknowledge that. That's what a good leader does. Expect change. Good leaders have to look for ways to improve and find better ways to do tasks. Guys, y'all are living in a time of nothing but constant change with what's going on. So good leaders have to expect change and be able to handle it. You got to be flexible. I think all of you are really strengthening those skills now. And good leaders have to nurture teamwork. Leaders observe team members as they perform their tasks. They assist in improvements and listen attentively. Don't just dismiss what people have to say because they are a lower ranking in the job than you are. Good leaders listen. You may learn something yourself, right? Teamwork is very important. It's a very important part of every job, but much more so in the food industry. Head on to the next slides and we'll talk about workstations and conflict resolution. Communication skills are big in this industry. Service staff must be able to speak well to both customers and coworkers. Communication skills, there's verbal and nonverbal. So verbal skills, you need to speak slowly and clearly. I tend to mumble and talk fast, as I'm sure you're going to learn throughout this course with these videos, but I do work on it. And so when you have customers come up, you have to really make sure you are talking where they can understand you. You also need to make eye contact. Even if that's uncomfortable for you, it shows that you are giving your full attention to your customer, which will make your customer feel appreciated and that they are important, and maybe they'll spend more money or give you a better tip. And your tone of voice should always be professional, pleasant, and friendly. Just because you're having a bad day does not mean your customer needs to see it, hear it, feel it from you, right? That's not their fault. They came there to relax or whatever. So your job is to be professional, pleasant, and friendly at all times. Nonverbal skills. Even though you may not be saying anything negative, your actions speak louder than words. I know all of you have heard of that before. So you want to make sure you stand straight. You don't walk over there all slunged and hunched over like you couldn't be there, like, ugh, already. You need to not chew gum, eat or drink while serving customers. Do not eat or drink the nastiest thing. I had a waitress eat a French fry, lick her fingers, and come over there to take my order. That was disgusting. I don't know where her fingers have been, especially right now, guys. She put her spit all over that. And then you need to write clearly when you are taking orders because someone else has to read that. That's exactly how orders get mixed up sometimes. Sometimes your waiter or waitress didn't write legibly, and so the back of the house gets it, and they're creating what they think you wrote down. You also have to have a positive attitude, willingness to please the customer, pride in your work. Don't just half do things. Do it correctly, the right way, and always be cheerful. Now, that doesn't mean you need to always be super bubbly like, hey, and that's not your personality. Obviously, you won't be. But it also means you're not going to be in slump mode and be like, yeah, can I take your order, right? You have to always be cheerful. Hi, welcome. How are you today? May I take your order? Like that. And you want to show courtesy to customers and coworkers. Don't be rude and disrespectful. No one wants to be disrespected, including yourself. So if you give respect, you should get respect in return. You always need to respect yourself and others. That's my number one rule in my classroom. That's actually my only rule in my classroom. Respect yourself and others while on the job and accept responsibility for your actions. You should do that in life, period. You'll be more successful, I promise. And learn to practice empathy, the skill of thinking about what it would be like in another's place. Guys, that is so important. We have lost that somewhat in today's society. Put yourself in someone else's shoes. Maybe try to see it from their point of view. That doesn't mean you have to agree or you have to, but you might empathize with them. So you're like, oh, I understand why they're having a bad day. You know, their dog just got ran over, and maybe that's why they came in here and they're not the happiest customer or the most fun customer to wait on, but then you get to wait on them. So maybe you can be the bright spot in their day. Take advantage of that. It's super important that you learn to practice empathy in life, not just in the workplace, but it will make you very successful in the workplace. Restaurants have different workstations. Every restaurant is set up a little differently. For instance, so workstations include a beverage station, which is where your cold beverages and hot beverages are, and then a service station, which usually has your dishes, glasses, eating utensils, water, bread. But let's think about it. If you've ever been to Roadhouse, you walk in the door, right? The hostess and them are there to greet you, and then someone comes and walks you to your seat. But before they do, they walk over to the right where the steaks are, and they pick up a basket of what? Rolls, your bread. So that is one of their stations. Then as they're walking you to the seat, they pass these little troughs that have your already rolled silverware and eating utensils in them, your napkin. They pick that up and then they take you to your seat. Then a little more of the middle of the restaurant, I know they have pitchers of water. I've seen them. And then I guess they go back and get tea. Maybe they have pictures of tea too, but I recently remember seeing the water. And so then they bring you the water and tea. The sodas is probably have a fountain or something in the back. I haven't seen that. But they have different workstations, and that's just an example of one restaurant. Every restaurant has a different setup to where they keep each thing has its place. So every waiter or waitress knows where to go to find what you need. Let's talk about duties that you would have at a restaurant. So there's side work, and that may include cleaning and refilling the salt and pepper shakers, and sugar containers, condiment containers, cleaning seats, tables, and floors, folding napkins, and setting tables. So that's some side work. So when you're not waiting on a customer, those are things that need to be done. Some of those don't have to be done every day. You may not have to refill a salt and pepper shaker every day, but you will have to do it regularly. And then there's sections. So usually your servers, also known as waiters and waitresses, they usually are given, they're usually responsible for a set number of tables in a section. So there's usually some sort of a board or something that your hostess is keeping up with on where they're putting people, where they're seating them, and putting certain people in charge of them. So your server oversees the group of tables. They're responsible for setting the table, taking orders, delivering the food, and clearing the table. Now, sometimes they do have busboys that will come and clear the table. Sometimes other people will come out and serve the food, especially on busy nights if your server, your waiter or waitress is taking orders at another table. Sometimes others may actually bring your food out. But those are basically the duties that you have at a restaurant. Have any of you ever worked at a restaurant? Let me know in the comments. Disputes and conflicts are part of being on a team. Not everyone will get along all the time, and that's okay. Just like the people you live with, I'm sure y'all get on each other's nerves every once in a while. Can you think of any disputes that might arise while you're working in a restaurant? Focus on the front of the house. Think of things that may happen, or disputes that you could see happening between employees that work in the front of house of a restaurant. So you have to learn how to negotiate, and that's what we're going to talk about today. It's very important for conflict resolution that you have to remember to focus on the problem and not the personalities involved. So when there's someone who already gets on your nerves, everything they do is going to get on your nerves. Once they've made you mad, it doesn't matter what they do. It could be very small, and you're still going to get annoyed more so because it's them than really because of what they did. So it's very important that we are mature and that we focus on the problem and not the personalities involved. If you cannot resolve the conflict, you need to be sure you discuss it with the manager. But guys, first we really need to resolve the conflict. Unless it is something serious where you are in fear for your safety, then you need to say something, or you're in fear for their safety, you need to say something. But let's try to resolve things by ourselves, right? Because we are old enough and we should learn some of these things. So the way you do that, there's different steps to resolving conflict. First, you need to find the problem. Because if you don't really even know what the problem is, you can't just say they just get on my nerves. Well, that's fine, but that's not a problem. That's not really something, that's your problem that you need to figure out how to handle because you need to not let them get on your nerves. You shouldn't let it nerve you, right? So you have to define what the problem is. And then part of your negotiation is you have to actually suggest a solution. Quitting is not a solution unless it's fear for your life. That is not a solution. Being mad and not speaking is not a solution. So you need to suggest a real viable solution. And then together y'all should evaluate that solution and make sure that it's fair to everyone involved. And then you focus on what the problem actually is. So then y'all can actually compromise because it shouldn't always be the same person getting their way. It should be even. It should be fair. And sometimes there's only really one way and someone's still hard-headed and can't see it. And that's okay, but that's why you have to really discuss what the problem is and suggest a solution, evaluate a solution, compromise, brainstorm how you can handle not having issues in the future, and then mediate. Go ahead and agree to say, hey, okay, we had beef, we fixed the problem, let's agree to just chill out, let bygones be bygones, and move forward, right? Because y'all are wonderful, beautiful, fabulous people, and I know that each one of you could do it. It will make your life so much easier, I promise, if you can learn that now. Okay, guys, if you have any questions, you can leave me some comments in our Google Classroom, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. Please see Google Classroom to complete the rest of your assignments for the week.